All right. Let's see. Are we going live? Are we live? We should be. There we go. What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another podcast of whatever. I don't know what it's called. It's just me. I'm just talking to all of you about stuff that happens in South Africa, stuff that would take way too long to put into a video, or sometimes, just sort of expansions on stuff that has already happened. Abaddon, how you doing, bro? Welcome to each and every one of you. I am very happy to be with you once again on this, I would say, beautiful Monday, because it is sort of okay. It's not really the worst of Mondays. But then again, the ANC is speed running the demise of South Africa. So let's say it's a normal Monday morning here in South Africa. We are, of course, starting our conversation not with South Africa, although it is very much still related to South Africa. And that is what happened yesterday. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I don't know if you guys have seen it. But yesterday in America, a bunch of angry leftists stormed a church. And quite frankly, and I'm not going to get into the details here, effectively, these angry mobs, this angry mob stormed the church, shut down the entire church service, and at the forefront of all of this was Don Lemon, right? The journalist, Don Lemon. He was there. He basically, alongside all of the others disrupting the service, you had leftists yelling absolute obscenities and the most vulgar language. And you had families there, right? You had people with their kids at church service on a Sunday. You just saw parents sort of, running out of the church with their kids, which, if you want to talk about hearts and minds, that's probably the best way to change hearts and minds, not for your side, but certainly it will change hearts and minds. Probably at the same coverage while watching his wife get plowed from his cock chair. He's gay, Abaddon, which explains a lot, right? But from everything that I saw there, the one thing that stood out to me that I found really fascinating about the whole thing was you just saw these conservatives suddenly realize what the war is about, right? Like, what is the war actually about? This isn't a war of left versus right. Literally, just earlier today. Sorry, guys, I'm sort of all over the place because I'm thinking of about 5 different things I want to talk to you guys about. Because just before I started this stream, I suddenly had a new thing that I wanted to talk about on the stream. So my mind is currently still a little bit everywhere. But just before, earlier this morning, just after I made the video, I started watching the latest trigonometry episode with Greg Hurwitz. Now, Greg Hurwitz is an author. He's actually a novelist. He writes novels. But he did study under Jordan Peterson. He is a psychology major. I think he has his degree in psychology and something else. So there's like a bunch of different degrees there. But effectively, what he became very interested in as a result of his spy work, because he writes spy thrillers, as a result of all of this, he became very interested in things like mind control cults and very interested in sort of psyops and things of that nature. Started to interest him a lot. And in preparation for a lot of his novels, he sort of infiltrated a lot of these personality cults, a lot of these mind control cults. He worked with a lot of law enforcement and a lot of psychologists that work within the FBI, trying to figure out, how does all of this work? Like, how do we get to this position that we are in the world now? How do we arrive at a place? And his episode had nothing to do with the people who stormed the church, just to be fair. His episode was all about the divide that we see between the left and the right. But effectively, how do we get here? How do you get to a place where a bunch of leftists storm a church and think that that's okay? So just to put this into perspective for you all, it is not profound or anything new for people to attack churches or bomb churches or, kill Christians. That's been happening literally since the days of Christ. Shortly after Christ's death, a lot of the apostles were killed. In fact, the majority of the apostles that spread the message of Jesus Christ were killed by fanatics and lunatics. The difference is, and why this is so special, or why this is a special scenario, is in most cases, the people who are doing the killing understand that what they're doing is probably not good, right? This is probably not a good thing, but they have their justifications for it. So yes, this is murder, but it doesn't matter. In this instance, these people that stormed that church, they don't believe that anything they did is wrong. They don't believe that they made a mistake. In fact, they believe that they are well within their rights to do this. And why is the thing that I think confuses a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand why. How did we get to this place in this period of time? And the answer is simple. The war isn't about left and right. It's not about liberal and conservative. It's, as I have said before, the war is between good and evil. And by this, I don't just mean evil as in Satan or Lucifer. I mean evil as in people who have a mindset of evil. People who are narcissistic, self-absorbed, and as Greg classifies them as Machiavellian-type personalities. So these are very nihilistic personalities, and there's a subset of the society that has this trait, where they don't really care if something is this, that, or the other. They don't really, as long as it's bad, right? So they don't care as long as it's bad. Whatever will burn down society faster, they will sort of rotate towards that position. So these are people who, if the right is in charge of everything, they'll become far right. If the left is in charge, they'll become far left. Whatever is required for them to burn down society, that's where they go. Now, what's very interesting is the guys from Trigonometry do ask Greg, well, why do we see this so much more extreme on the left than what we necessarily see it on the right? Because, the right has been in charge for a while now, but it doesn't seem like the right is as far taken with things like far-right Nazism and stuff of that nature. And he actually makes a very good point. So I'm not going to go through all of the 5 big personality traits, but I'm not going to dive into it because I myself don't personally understand it that well. But effectively what Greg explains here is leftists are very open to new experiences, right? That's sort of, so just to give you guys some backstory, Jonathan Haidt wrote an entire book on this, and the literature on this is absolutely established. Just a good psychologist can spend about 10 minutes asking you a number of questions, and they will, with quite a lot of certainty, be able to predict who you vote for. The only thing that can throw them off is the house that you grew up in. So people who grow up in healthy, happy homes tend to vote whichever way their parents vote, right? So if your parents voted left and you were a happy child, you're probably going to follow your parents, right? If your parents voted conservative and you were a happy child, you're probably going to follow your parents. That doesn't mean at all times. So, you get kids that go to college and they sort of go off in their own direction, but they'll eventually return to where their parents were. But the next best way of predicting who people vote for is on the 5 big personality traits. And one of them, the one that actually is the reason the left doesn't have the ability to stop it, is openness. The left is very open to new experiences, new ideas, moving forward, progress. Let's just go. And so the left isn't one to say, no, hold on, this is insane. We should probably slow down. On the exact opposite side of the spectrum, on the conservative side, conservatives are incredibly high on wall building, right? Conscientiousness, I believe they call it. Conservatives are incredibly good at putting up walls around things and saying, no, this works. This works. Don't come with your new ideas. This works. We're not gonna mess with this. It works as it's supposed to do. So conservatives like boxes. They like knowing there's structures, there's rules. We all know what the rules are. And another thing that conservatives are very high on is if you said you're going to do something, you do it. Are you on time? Are you a man of your word? Are you not a man of your word? These things are important to conservatives. So what happens in the conservative movement when you have these nihilistic sort of just people that want to see the world burn, what very quickly happens is the right, because they're so good at putting up walls, they identify these people and they very quickly go, no, not you. Someone like Nick Fuentes, for example. And I've listened to Nick Fuentes. There are some things that Nick says that I go, oh, well, that's actually quite reasonable. I find myself oftentimes agreeing with Nick Fuentes when he's on podcasts with other people. I never agree with him on his own podcast because I get the sense that Nick is two people. On his own podcast, he is the extreme Nick that just says outrageous things. On other people's podcasts, it's like Nick knows how to moderate and modulate himself. He's like, okay, well, here I'll soften my position on this a little because this might be a bit too harsh or whatever. But Nick Fuentes is a far-right commentator, right? He's incredibly far-right. I am a conservative. I am as conservative as they come. And even I listen to some of the things that Nick says, and I'm just like, dude, are you out of your mind? This isn't what I want. You know, Nick, for example, is a full-blown white nationalist. He's a proud white nationalist. And I happen to, and this is part of the story that we're actually here for today that we'll be discussing, but I happen to not be a white nationalist. I understand the mindset. I understand why some people believe that, you know, my people, just me and my people, I don't want to share with anyone else. I fully respect that. I don't really have that sort of mindset. I'm much more interested in how people think than what they look like. So I don't care whether you're black or purple or Indian or white. Doesn't matter to me. Are you a conservative? Are you a Christian? Are you a capitalist? These are far more important to me. Because if we agree on at least two of the three of those questions, I can live with you. And I can probably enjoy living in a country with you. So from my perspective, I don't make skin color my primary identification model because I find skin color to be wholly inadequate. There are black people. So, for example, there's a girl on X. I don't know what her actual name is because she keeps changing her username, but most of you should have seen her. It's a black girl. She calls herself an Afrikaner. I probably have far more in common with her than what I have with Pieter Kriel, right? And if I'm getting to choose which South Africa do I want to live in, would I like to live with her in my block or with Pieter Kriel on my block? And I'm probably going to want to live with her on my block and have Pieter Kriel live somewhere else, right? So from my perspective, I don't care about your skin color or your race. I care far more about your ideas. But effectively, when you look at leftists, and by the way, guys, this is coming to South Africa. There's a reason why I'm covering this. You guys know me. I do like covering international politics, but I prefer to cover international politics when it has an effect on us here in South Africa. I don't just like diving into international politics. I follow international politics in that way, but I don't care that much. Like, if China suddenly decides to start bombing their own people, that's not something I care about. I don't live in China. So, you know, what are you going to do? And they are killing the Muslims in China, so what are you going to do? It is what it is. The Uyghur Muslims, I believe they're called. But okay, so from my perspective, and hello everyone that's just joined in. Very happy to have you all here. From my perspective, what we're seeing today is coming to South Africa. I have a friend that sent me this message on WhatsApp. They're part of like a huge Christian organization, and part of this organization is this watchdog. Trying to remember what the hell they are called. Hold up, let me just see if I can find this. Here we go. They're called 4SA, right? Is the watchdog 4SA, and he forwarded this to me. Where, if you guys remember, a few months ago, I made this video where I covered a new piece of legislation that's been, well, actually not that new. It came out, I think, in 2023, and it's been blocked by various religious organizations And the government has consistently gone back to the drawing board, came up with a new one. Desperately, the government is trying to push and force this through. Now, the new piece of legislation, on the surface, sounds not too terrible. But once you think about it for 2 seconds, you go, oh, wait, what are you talking about? So the new piece of legislation will effectively give the government, the ANC, the ability to look at what churches are teaching their practitioners. So the people who go to church, what are they being taught? And not only that, based on these teachings, the government can then decide whether a church deserves the protections of a church. Now, the government sells this as there's far too many churches in South Africa that steal people's money, that is just in the business of making money. And so this is to protect those people from churches that are just taking advantage of the uneducated masses in South Africa, telling them, you guys know the prosperity churches, right? Those churches that tell you, no, if you pray 5 times a day and you give all of your money to the pastor, you'll be rich. God is going to give you millions, right? There are churches like that, not the vast majority. In fact, it's the vast minority of churches that are like that. To give you guys an example, a lot of South Africans like to look at America and go, oh yeah, the churches are mega churches and these pastors are so super rich. And you'll always hear these people going, we should start taxing churches because this is ridiculous, because they look at, people like the dude with the demon eyes. I never, Sean Copeland. No, not Sean Copeland. The pastor, the guy, his eyes are like demon eyes. He looks like he's possessed. Copeland. What's his name? I can't remember his name now, but I think his surname is Copeland. Kenneth Copeland. There we go. Thank you, Daniel. Yes, Kenneth Copeland. People look at that church and they go, well, we should tax it. It should be taxed. All churches should be taxed. But they ignore the fact that the over 90% of churches in America makes less than $60,000 a year. Over 90%. I want you to think about that. Over 90% of churches in America have a pastor that doesn't even make $60,000 a year. Right? So the vast majority of churches in America genuinely take that position seriously, and the money that you give them, they spend on their communities, trying to help their communities. They're not keeping that money for themselves, right? You see the mega churches and you think, oh, that's indicative of all churches, but it is not. The same is true here in South Africa. The vast majority of churches aren't rich. My own church, for example, it's not a rich church. It's a church that manages its money incredibly well, and whatever money it has in excess, it opens another church or it spends it trying to help the poor. It's always trying to fulfill its great commission, which is to go out and make disciples of all the nations, right? But the government is under this new bill. They're basically saying we need to see what all of these churches are teaching the people, because if they're breaking the law, then we can shut them down and we can effectively remove their ability to be churches. This is the South African government, the communists in the ANC, coming for Christianity. What we saw yesterday happening in America, that is the leftist communists coming for Christianity. Do you ever wonder why the left doesn't go after mosques? Why the left doesn't attack Islam? Why the ANC, for all of their evil, are hand and glove with Islamic countries all over the world? It's simple. Why would Satan attack his own house? That would make no sense. Jesus himself said it. A house divided cannot stand. It's as simple as that. And what these leftists do not yet understand is Islam does not play well once it gains power. The history is full of examples of people who tried to work with Islam in order to take power. And in every single one of these examples, Islam slaughters the leftists. Every single time. The most recent example is Iran. The second Khamenei took power, his Revolutionary Guard killed over 20,000 people. That's Islam for you. Right? So the goal has always been Christianity. The goal has always been the church. What we're seeing now is, I personally think, the enemy getting desperate, because with Donald Trump winning and Donald Trump sort of really putting pressure around the world on all of these agents of evil, people like Russia, people like China, people like Iran, all of these countries. And I don't even necessarily want to put Russia in that basket. Let me just be clear about that. I think Russia has been forced into the hands of the enemy because no one on the side of the friends wanted them. Russia has always had this sort of bad boy attitude, right? And this bad boy image. And quite frankly, I have a friend who knows a little bit more about geopolitics than I do. And he told me everything Trump is doing now, desperately trying to bring Russia out from the cold, make friends with Russia, the Europeans will never allow it to happen. And I asked him, why not? And he said, well, it's simple. The European leadership has always looked for an excuse to bring Europe ever closer. Because the leaders of Europe want a United States of Europe. They don't like this idea of every country being able to do its own thing. And the one thing that they need before they can actually become the United States of Europe is a united army. They need to be able to tell the people of Europe, give us that power, allow us to create this massive European army so that we can keep you safe. And the only way they can convince the European people of that is by having a bad guy. They need a bad guy. And Russia is that bad guy. So he said to me, there's no way that the Europeans will ever allow Russia to be a friend. That is why they're fighting this hard in Ukraine. That is why they're absolutely hell-bent on just stopping any and all peace talks between Russia, America, and Ukraine. Because fundamentally what they want is that enemy. They need Russia as the enemy so that they can get their army. I think Trump is trying to bring Putin over to the side of friends to tell Putin, look, leave the war in Ukraine. We're going to stop NATO expansion. In fact, we're going to bring you into NATO. Because, and for those of you that think Putin will never do it, Putin asked. In 1999, Putin asked whether or not Russia could join NATO. He was told, no, we don't need more members. Then in 2002, Putin asked again, can we join NATO? And again, America said, no, we good, fam. Then I believe in 2005, Russia again formally requested membership of NATO. And America again said, no, we cool, fam. Go do your thing. Right? So Putin is not completely against joining NATO. And I think if Trump were to offer him NATO membership, he'd probably take it, right? He'd probably go along with that if they can convince the Europeans to go along. We'll have to wait and see who's going to be playing out and who's going to be right on that front. But ultimately, the forces of evil, China, Iran, South Africa, Cuba, these forces, I think, are starting to panic. With Donald Trump and what he's doing in from America, the pressure that he's applying, I genuinely think that countries like Russia or countries like China, countries like South Africa, you sort of see it as well. Like, it's no coincidence that there's been more missteps from the ANC in the last 6 months than ever before. I mean, if you guys think about the amount of times we as South Africans have looked at what the ANC is doing and we've asked, and I'm guaranteeing you, every single one of you in chat has gone through this exact moment where you look at something the ANC is doing and you go, how is the world not seeing this? Or you hear the Europeans are giving the South Africans, the ANC, another 5 billion euro. And you go, do they not know what the ANC is doing? Like, what the hell is going on here? Like, the ANC has been getting away with murder for the last 30 years. And no one seems to notice. And it's rare that they get caught. And now in the last 6 months, it's like every single month, there is a new thing that is starting to go wrong. And you can see the ANC has no answer. They don't know what to do because everything is falling apart. They don't want to be the center of attention. They were perfectly happy with just allowing things to play out the way that it is. So now let's talk about the bad news here. Can I quickly find out how many of you watched Willem Peter's video from, I think it was Friday or Saturday. How many of you watched this video? It's a really good video. If you haven't watched it yet, after the stream, you should absolutely go watch it. But it really is a good video. In the video, Willem Peter makes an interesting... He makes an interesting observation. Let me see if I can find the name quickly of the video for you guys. Just so that I... So the name of the video is "The ANC and their voters rejected the Rainbow Nation from the start," and it is from Saturday. If you haven't watched it already, you should absolutely go watch it because it's really interesting. But in the video, Willem Peter hypothesizes and says that if you look at the voting structure, first and foremost, if you listen to the actual leaders of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, Jacob Zuma, Thabo Mbeki, and Nelson Mandela, you will very quickly realize that they never wanted a Rainbow Nation. The Rainbow Nation was just a catchy little sort of slogan designed for white liberals. Because the only party in the entire South Africa that actually bought the lie of Rainbow Nation is the DA. A bunch of white liberals. They're the only ones that sort of went, oh, yeah, that sounds amazing. The truth is that the black majority of South Africa have not bought into the Rainbow Nation nonsense, and they have no interest in it. And Willem makes the argument that when you look at the actual vote share in South Africa, so you look at who votes where, you find that around 80 to 90% of all voting-aged black people in South Africa support black parties. They do not support the DA. They do not support the Freedom Front. And I saw a video, actually the whole of X is just booming with people writing posts and articles about how more and more black people are joining the Freedom Front Plus. And there's this revival of the Freedom Front Plus that's just going crazy, right? The truth is, South Africa is proof that tribalism cannot die. That it doesn't matter how much you say you're sorry. It doesn't matter how much you give up. It doesn't matter how much you sacrifice. The tribe will always be stronger than logic. Always. So there's a few options. Willem Peter's video made a couple of suggestions, but here's what I will say about it. It seems to me, and he's not wrong, by the way, I've researched his video, I've tried to look for counterpoints to it. The fact of the matter is, Willem Peter is not wrong. What we see from black people who get disenfranchised with the ANC, they either go vote EFF or MK or they stop voting altogether. They do not go and support a white party. They do not support a white party. So Willem Peter's entire hypothesis, in my opinion, plays out exactly the way that it should. We have tribalism, and this isn't racism, it's tribalism. It's black people looking at themselves and saying, other black people is my tribe. These white people are not my tribe. Then, of course, we have a bunch of white people that just, they don't view the world that way. You look at people like Peter Kriel, people like Kim Heller, they are white, but they hate their own people. They're like, I hate these white people. I want to be part of the black tribe. What they don't understand is that they will never actually be part of the black tribe. What the black people in South Africa see them as are useful idiots. They're useful idiots. They're liberals, which for the black majority that vote this way, that's amazing, right? Because liberal idiots are what basically has allowed them to do what they do for as long as they have, all throughout the Western world. It's why Europe is basically on the verge of collapse thanks to uncontrolled third world immigration. It's why America is currently on the verge of a civil war with these leftists, because white liberals will literally burn their own societies to the ground in order to make people from third world countries feel welcome. That's the big issue with white liberals. They will watch everything burn down just to make people feel a little bit welcome. What they don't understand is they will be the first people that are killed once they get rid of the white conservatives, right? Once the white conservatives disappear, they will come for the white liberals as well. Because South Africa is the future of the world. What you see in South Africa, this is what the rest of the world has to look forward to. There is no way to reconcile these differences. Not as long as race is the dividing line. And that is so often our biggest mistake in this country. We allow the racist ANC, EFF, and MK to govern the conversation, to guide the talking points. And so they make it about race, and if history and biology is anything to go by, race is powerful. And it kind of makes sense. From the day that I was born, every single person I know was white. My mom was white. My dad was white. All of my family members were white. The first girl I ever had a crush on was white. The first girl I ever dated was white. All of my friends in school were white. It was only in high school at the age of 16 that I, for the first time, had a black kid in my high school. For the first time in my entire school career, at the age of 16, that I finally share a classroom with a black guy. And actually, I happened to be good friends with him. Just FYI, he was a great guy. His name was Saki. He has since become super far left, and we had a fallout about 5 or 6 years ago, and we haven't spoken since because he thought that white men are the problem of all things in the world. You guys remember the story of the kids that were kidnapped? The black kids that were kidnapped? Actually, it wasn't even black kids. I think it was white kids that were kidnapped. And the whole country, Cyril Ramaphosa, everyone got up and spoke about how bad white men are. And white men is all of the rage and all of the problems. And I had a fight with Saki because I said that this is an old man, as you can imagine. And then it turns out it was a white woman that abducted the kids. And she worked with a number of... actually, no, I remember now. They didn't blame white men. They blamed black men because the men were caught on camera abducting the child. And I said, look, this is an old man. What the hell are you talking about? This is 4 men that the video shows that is bad. Like, what are you talking about? And then it turns out it was a white woman who hired the black men to kidnap the kids. So you know, but anyways, apparently I was the sexist pig for saying it's not all men. Even in this case, it wasn't men, right? But anyways, so Saki was actually a pretty good guy. But he was one of the first black people that I even knew in school. So I didn't grow up with it. That means that when I'm threatened, there's a biological thing in me that I'm just automatically, right, going to trust people that look exactly like me. So how do we defeat that in this country? Well, first, before we get there, let's talk about some scenarios, shall we? What can South Africa do? Well, option number 1, or scenario number 1, is we do nothing. We continue to do this nationalist government thing where the government is in Pretoria and the government makes the rules for everyone else. And we just continue on this trend. And I give South Africa at the most 5 years before it descends into one of the greatest civil wars this world has ever seen. Now, the war, if we are to, if I'm just playing by the numbers, so I'm not taking into account that the English had to send the largest army the empire has ever assembled to try and deal with the Boer population here in South Africa. If we don't take into account the fighting spirit of the Boer and we just look at it from the geopolitical strategy perspective, the white Boer is outnumbered by the black voters of the racist black parties in South Africa by a large margin. Right? There's far more black people in this country than what there are white people. So if this civil war breaks out, the Boers will basically be eradicated within, say, a year, right? If it even takes that long. There will be no more white people left in this country. Following that, the black people in this country will immediately have a huge problem with the Muslims in this country, who will then turn on the black populations. And even there, the black population still outnumbers the Muslims, and so they will win that war as well. From there, I give it about 2 years at most of relative peace before the black tribes will start killing each other. Because what most people think in South Africa, especially from the outside, is all black people in South Africa are the same. There's nothing could be further from the truth. The Zulu and the Xhosa don't particularly get along. The Sepedi and the Tswana doesn't particularly get along. These tribes exist only insofar as there is an enemy. So as long as they believe that the white man is the enemy, then okay, cool. The second you remove the white man as an enemy, they will start killing each other. Because that's what they did before the white man became the enemy. So just to highlight that, that's scenario number one. Potential scenario of how South Africa can play out. Scenario two. We say, okay, hold on. This national government thing isn't working. The ANC wakes up tomorrow and realizes that we're heading towards a massive civil war and they don't want that. Right? And so they say, okay, let's federalize. Let's give every single group in this country the ability to govern themselves. I know I'm just giving scenarios here. I'm not saying which one will or won't happen. I'm giving you guys scenarios and I'm simplifying it. So I'm not involving any sort of this could happen and then that would have this effect, because then we'd have a million scenarios and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. But in this scenario where we federalize, but everything else stays the same. So we still make race the main contender. What will happen is the areas governed by the white people will outperform the areas governed by the black tribes by a mile. Now remember, we have racial lines. So black people cannot come to white areas and white people cannot go to black areas. So we will end up in the exact same place that we were for all of apartheid history. Because the Bantustans were given full autonomy to run themselves. And they ended up running themselves into the ground, and then all of them had to flee to the cities in order to get jobs because they could not create an economy in their own Bantustans. That's the reality, guys. That's the truth. That's the firm truth of what happened. And yes, from there, you bet your ass there were a lot of evil white guys that took massive advantage of the black people that were now desperate for jobs in South Africa, or at least in the cities. And so, yes, they passed a lot of laws that effectively took great advantage and evil advantage of people who were desperately just looking for work. So, effectively, we either end up with apartheid again, which will just lead to more war, more fighting, and another 1994 at some point, most likely. Or it will lead to war, just full-blown war, and we will end up exactly where we were in scenario one, just massive war with a stalemate of some kind. That's if we keep everything the same, we just federalize. But there is a third option. And the third option, I believe, is the one that we should be following. We federalize, but not along racial lines. We federalize along ideological lines. Because the reason the black Bantustans failed had nothing to do with skin color. It had to do with mindset. It had to do with a group of people who were taught that communism is the answer, believing it, and never given the education to understand that communism never leads to anything good. Throughout history, there is not a single nation that embraced communism that didn't end up killing most of their citizens as a result of it. It's nothing to do with skin color. It's mindset. And so if you divide a federalized system along ideological lines, and you tell Kim Heller and Pieter Kriel, go live in the EFF bloc, go be a communist to the best of your ability, and leave the freedom-loving capitalists to do our own thing. The capitalists will rise up and our states will become so powerful that the communists will eventually have no other option but to join. They will have to flip because they will see, wait, these guys are just getting richer and richer and richer and we're dying over here. That, to me, is the only way you save South Africa. You have to shift the dialogue away from skin color because we will always lose that dialogue. Always. Because as soon as you involve skin color, That's tribalism. There's no way to argue with that because it's biologically built into every single one of us. That's a powerful motivator. But if we can flip that conversation away, if we can move that conversation away from skin color and race, and instead say, no, 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 no. Let's take hands, all of us that care about freedom, that care about capitalism, that just want to raise our children without the government's interference. We take hands. That could work. The DA isn't the party to do that. That is why most of those black people who might feel exactly the same will not vote for the DA. Because they're not conservative. The DA is a leftist World Economic Forum party. They're just not quite as leftist as the ANC, but they are leftist all the same. Right? And they don't have a message. They don't have a message that tells people, hey, if you care about freedom, if you care about your family, if you care about good, honest Christian values, vote for us. The DA doesn't have those values. They're a bunch of degenerate scumbags. So why would people vote for them that may share those values? The only way you're going to do that is if you get a party in this country that actually can stand on those values and actually say, look, this is what I believe. This is what we want. Otherwise, it's always just going to go back to war. No matter which scenario I play out, no matter how I try to think through every single one of these scenarios, it always ends with civil war, except if we can take back the narrative and stop talking about race. Now, that doesn't mean all the racists are going to go away. The EFF is still going to be there. The ANC is still going to be there. There's a lot of people that's making a lot of money off of this racism thing. Right? And they're not going to stop making their money. But you may just be able to move the center. And you won't get 50%. But you might get a large enough share to where you can start applying pressure. And that, I think, is the only way to do it. Yeah, John Steenhuisen is effectively Keir Starmer. Okay, now I can read your messages, guys. CR, how you doing? It's the age of Aquarius and the end of corporations, ruining the people as slaves. Pure Blood, how you doing? This is similar to balkanization, which ended in civil war. Lamborghini, balkanization, yes, but also remember that balkanization wasn't exactly an organic process, right? Any sort of top-down approach, any sort of approach where you say you must live there and this one must live there, will end in civil war. That's undeniable. It has to be a process of people choosing their own sides. People choosing where they want to live, rather than being told where they're allowed to live. Because, yeah, that's always going to be a nightmare. For 30 years, Parliament has sunk SA. Parliament is not going to save SA. Oh, Pure Blood, Parliament is a joke. But, I mean, you guys know my positions on democracy. I find democracy to be a complete waste of time. Red or blue pill, neither or both. As an example, they can have California and make it an IRL fallout, People's Republic of California, and cut it off from the rest of the US. Altavas, how you doing, bro? I genuinely think that's exactly what's going to happen even in the United States of America. So I think America is... I think by the end of all of this, there's not going to be there's not going to be a United States of America with 50 states. It's going to be fewer states, most likely. What about supporting the Patriotic Alliance? Adam, so the Patriotic Alliance is very much a colored party. It's the party of the colored national or nationalists. It's not that they're not open to everyone else, but effectively, if you support the Patriotic Alliance, you are effectively supporting colored nationalism, which is fine if that's what you want to support. I just happen to not think that that's a good idea. I would rather support capitalist nationalism. Right? Like if I'm gonna support any sort of nationalism, it would be capitalist nationalism. I'd happily support that. this old boer that was a senior van Rensburg said something about what's happening right now. Shemaine, I know. I've read his work. The Great Commission is firstly to teach all nations, make disciples, is bad translation from stupid scholarship. And I don't necessarily agree because teaching them and making them disciples is exactly the same thing. In order to become a disciple, you get taught until you can teach others. That's what it means. I don't understand. They need recognition. They seem to support capitalism. We Buddha will not stand under any political parties. We want and will get freedom away from parliament. Pureblood, I don't know how we'll get freedom. I can't answer that. Financial services firm. Abaddon, what conversations are you currently having here? The term race only exists because we can see the difference in color of our skins. It would not exist in a blind world. Paul Tappan, you're absolutely correct, right? Racially speaking, it should not be a thing that matters. But it does matter to some people. And the fact that it matters to some people means that you're an idiot if you say it doesn't matter to you. Right? You have to take that into account when you argue. And I realize I'm calling myself an idiot because race genuinely doesn't matter to me. But in my strategy, I have to take race into account. Because if I don't, I'm a moron. Because there are people who take race very seriously. And because of them, I also have to do that. Right? But I agree with you. In a perfect world, race wouldn't matter. And when you go to a church on a Sunday, you will find that people are worshiping with people of all walks of life and everyone gets along. My own church is black and colored and Indian people, Asian people are in my church. And I love all of those people there, right? I love every single person at my church because they're all brothers and sisters in Christ. Every last one of them, right? So around faith and around Christ, we're all family. But that's because we have found a way to get something that's more important and more powerful than our race to replace the basic tribalism of race. In America, they took the flag and they made that the basic primary function. The flag, right? That's the big one. And everyone's going to come together under the flag and that's going to be the thing. So you have to find some way to connect people, and it has to be a stronger connection than race, because race is primal. It's biological. It's so easy. Take some planning and work. Oh, yeah, Abaddon. I feel you there. We have no proper right-wing, non-racial, family-oriented Judeo-Christian party to vote for, if such a thing can exist. Lamborghini, you're not wrong. You are absolutely not wrong. There are no racist billionaires, just an invented revolution. Revolution were to make ordinary blacks angry and ordinary whites to feel guilty. So there's a reason why billionaires oftentimes don't revolt, nor are they racist. Because, okay, I can guarantee you, I know plenty of very rich people who are very racist. They just don't say it. They understand that there is a price to pay. And, when you're rich enough, you get to a place where everyone's a customer and you don't want to lose customers. So they just know how, look, racism, it exists on every single level. But no, they're not the ones. They're the ones that like to stoke division because a divided people will not revolt. And they know once the middle class start to get upset, you have a revolution. Would happily move there. It's whether I'd be able to get a good job with my skill set. The obvious place would be New York for what I do, but hell no to moving there. Move to Texas, baby. Have it on Texas, man. That's where all the free people go. If you want to be free, you move to Texas. Pure capitalism and pure communism, I can't really see the difference. One, you're under the state. The other, the company. Free market capitalism, I can agree to, except if my thinking is wrong. So, Turks Fay, there's no such thing as pure anything, right? So pure communism really cannot exist because pure communism is built on this idea that people just aren't greedy and there's no greed whatsoever. Obviously, we know that that doesn't exist, and so that will just never happen. As for pure capitalism, most people will call that laissez-faire capitalism, but that's not really true because the father of capitalism, Adam Smith, he wasn't a laissez-faire capitalist. So if the creator of capitalism isn't even the capitalism that people call pure capitalism, then what are we doing? Under Adam Smith, capitalism did have control. The government didn't just allow for corporations to do whatever they want. Adam Smith's idea was simply that government should always try to prioritize competition. It should be the government's role to try and create as much competition in the market as possible. And Adam Smith explained how the government should not do this by stopping companies from doing business, but rather by trying to make it easier for competitors to do business. So instead of going, no more, we're going to break up your company, the government says, okay, let's see what red tape exists that's making it impossible for other companies to start doing business here. Because the government just wants more and more competition. So still, the government would have been involved, right? To some extent. But I do agree with you. I think the one thing that people oftentimes make a huge mistake on is people like to think about utopia. Both the left and the right does this, right? The right to a lesser extent, the left is very utopian, but people like to think of utopias. And they think, oh, yeah, if we get communism, we'll have utopia. Or you get people that think, if we get capitalism, you'll get utopia. Capitalism has never, ever promised utopia. Communism promises utopia. It delivers death and hell. But capitalism has never promised utopia. Capitalism has just always and ever promised freedom. Freedom is messy. Freedom is very messy and sometimes bloody and sometimes dirty, but it is freedom, right? And so that's why I prefer capitalism, because it provides freedom. Bora, how you doing? Hands of our church is true. Texas is also badass. It's just either hot, sweltering hot, or it's February, the month. My culture and heritage is very important to me. My forefathers died in Blood River for what we had. We have forgot what we promised. Andre, I celebrate and keep that day every single year. And to that, it's something that's important to me, even though I didn't personally have family in that. I did have on my mother's side. So it's a bit removed because I think of all four of my grandparents, only one of them had people in the lore. But to me, that's still important, right? So I still keep the day. Anna Marie, how you doing? Or Anami, how you doing? Thanks for the explanation. Dirkve, you're welcome, sir. Pinellas County is prime, no crime, business friendly, top tier beaches. Are you talking about Florida? But Florida is just as terrible, though. I mean, guys, Florida's a swamp. Let's get real here. Racism is an excuse for covering anything they can't explain. Racism excuse doesn't work anymore. Quibus, the saddest part is that in America, you're absolutely correct. In America, it no longer works. Racism as a charge no longer works. In South Africa, it works like a charm. Trust me, I'm on X all the time. I can tell you now, there's still power to that charge. There is. All they basically need to do for their supporters is scream racism, and their supporters believe it. That's just how it is, right? And you're gonna have to face that. It's gonna be a hard battle. And the saddest part is, and I genuinely hate saying this, but I feel like the only way the communists in South Africa will ever learn how bad communism actually is they have to pay for it. And I don't mean war or anything like that. People who experience the evils of communism tend to realize how bad it is. And I mean, thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. And I'm glad. I think today's stream was a little bit challenging for some people, especially if you came in the middle of the conversation. That would have been harsh because we were talking about a bunch of things that if you didn't know what we were talking about, you probably thought, whoa, this guy's a nationalist? Holy crap. Oh, this guy is for civil war? Holy crap. Federalism, it's DA, therefore giving more powers to provinces. I vote for DA until another option. Lannis, that's just not true, though. The DA claims that they're for federalism. But when they had the opportunity to actually hold the referendum, they betrayed their voters. No one is stopping the DA from holding a referendum. Literally no one. The DA can hold a referendum on federalization or Cape independence tomorrow. And they don't do it. They refuse to have the referendum. Why? If they're the party for it, there would be no better argument or no better tool to take to the ANC than to say, look, we had a referendum on Cape independence. 55% of the population in the Western Cape said yes, they want independence. So either you give us federalization or we go independent. Those are your options. Now you have a bargaining chip, right? Now you have something that you can argue about and you can sort of use as a tool in the negotiation. But the DA says a lot of stuff. I'm not interested in what they say. I'm interested in what they do. And whenever I see the DA do anything, what I see is a bunch of socialist, communist hacks that are just not quite as far left as the ANC. It's been years in South Africa. Looking forward to more adventures in the future. Adam, South Africa is a wonderful place, especially to just visit. I think it's an amazing place. Lamborghini with the $70 donation. Truly appreciate you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Capitalism fosters more accountability in a true free market economy. Free market economies require education where people can see the juxtapositions in society. In SA, this is not the case. Lamborghini, you're not wrong, right? You are not wrong. For a capitalist government to work, and Adam Smith had the exact same, for a capitalist system to work, you need an educated population, right? A population that understands when companies are starting to do things that are completely immoral and therefore should be put a stop to. So I absolutely agree with you there. Freedom Front Plus, the DA are just like the ANC, but speaking nice English. Mr. T, you're not wrong. I had 4 of my family die in the battle law, you mean? I'm sorry to hear that, sir. No, wait, couldn't be in the law because the law, no one died. Battle loss family. Wait, what? Andre, what are you saying? I love how Iranians fear God. We just need to overcome racism and all will be well. There's only one way you overcome racism. You have to give people something bigger and something more powerful to hold on to. Race is easy. That's why racism is sort of the easiest thing you can get, right? Like there's nothing easier. I could literally turn this channel into a roaring success by just going full-blown racist. But I could just embrace every single racist talking point and I'd have thousands of people listening to me. Because that works. People like, it's basic, it's easy to understand. It's when you're trying to be nuanced and you're trying to understand what is actually happening and you're trying to get to the heart of an issue. People don't like that. It's not an easy answer, right? It's not an easy concept. But you have to do it if you want to save this country. I've been putting in work, not the kind that people would consider vacation. That's still good. Have any of you ever met an African that doesn't shift blame? David, yeah. Yeah, I have. I have. Trust me, I have. Again, I'll talk about some of the people I have at my church. Right, there's a guy called Precious who works probably harder than I've ever seen most people do. Right, he has his own wood business where he goes and he picks up firewood and fireplace wood, and he drives it out to people's homes personal deliveries for people, and he does a bunch of other like smaller jobs just to keep the lights on. His wife fixes clothes and does a bunch of needlework and stuff for people around town. He works super hard, and I know last year wasn't a particularly good year for him, and yeah, he didn't shift the blame. He didn't try to blame anyone else. He said, "We keep praying and we keep trusting. We keep working." He's pretty much the same as me and you, right? Like literally, you hear him speak, you may as well be listening to any one of us, any one of our parents. He has the same mindset because he knows that Jesus is in control. He's not a victim, which is the biggest issue, right? So many black people in South Africa are victims, and they're caught in this victim mindset that they just cannot escape. Um, and until we can defeat that, we're in for a hell of a rough ride. New idea to remove the legislation concerning monopolies, because that's one of the ways capitalism can resemble a totalitarianism, authoritarianism, dystopia. All of us true. Freedom Plus stood in the way of the Buddha getting freedom from politics, because when they don't have slaves, they don't matter. Politics is a criminal career. They are there for the lifestyle. You're probably not wrong. Walk in shop, accidentally knock into black lady with trolley, labeled racist. Oof. Mutual respect is the only thing that can bypass racism. But as long as the race-mad media and politicians keep using propaganda against its own citizens, the trust will never flourish. Charmaine, you're probably also not wrong about that. There was an interesting post by someone made today on how Urania reminded him about a Venda community with beautiful architecture. I've never been to Urania. To be fair, I remember a few years ago, I had some family members who said, "Hey, why don't we move to Urania?" And my response then is the same as it is now. I don't want to. I want those people to be able to live there, and I will support them in whichever way they need. I just don't want to live there, right? I am in that regard. I like seeing different people. I like different cultures, right? I enjoy it. I like the city for that reason. So I probably wouldn't enjoy Urania that much, but I want them to be happy. I want them to exist, and I want them to have everything they need. So, yeah, I've never been to Urania, but I do want to go at some point. I want to experience it. What are your thoughts on that super mega racist of the Land First Party on X? Oh, Land First, Black First, Land First is like, they should, in a just country, they should have already been arrested. The reason they're not arrested, the reason the EFF has not ever been broken up and arrested, is by design. As I said in my video earlier today, the EFF isn't a separate party to the ANC. The EFF is the extremist wing of the ANC. Many people don't understand this. Many people don't quite think about it that way. The EFF is what allows the ANC to keep a finger on the pulse of the people in South Africa. To just govern. Like, how extreme are the people in South Africa? Is it time for us to, go full communist? Or should we still go slow? The EFF is that sort of barometer for the ANC. So when Julius Malema says things, he's saying what the ANC wants him to say. That's why when Donald Trump asked Cyril Ramaphosa, just disavow the singing of the song. Not make it illegal. Not arrest Julius Malema for it. Just disavow it. Literally, Cyril just had to stand in front of the world and say, I disavow the singing of Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. I disavow it. You shouldn't sing that. He could have nixed, right? He could have, like, behind his back, nixed, right? I'm fingers crossing, so I don't mean what I say. He could have done that. And that's all Donald Trump wanted to hear, was him just disavowing it. And he didn't do it. He was willing to risk tariffs not to disavow the song. That's because singing the song is important. Cyril needs the song to be sung. It's the exact same reason why when Donald Trump asked, remember, again, Donald Trump didn't ask that farm murder should stop entirely. He didn't tell the ANC that they should make farm murders the most important crime in the world. He asked that farm murders be declared a priority crime. And that makes sense. Murders in rural areas tend to be priority because they're very difficult to solve. You need specialized units to take care of it. Again, the ANC didn't do anything about it. Why? Because it helps. It's supposed to be that way. Gangs. The gangs in Cape Town. The gangs in Johannesburg. Why aren't these gangs stopped? Because the gangs work for the ANC. That's why. If politicians cannot stop something in your country, it's because they're part of it. Mark with the 70 Rand donation. Truly appreciate you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're so kind. Fantastic channel and so informative. Thank you. You are most welcome, sir. I really appreciate the donation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The EFF is what the AWB was for the NP. I mean, I wouldn't even... well, actually, I can't comment on that. Right? I genuinely can't comment on that because the only thing I remember of the AWB is Eugene Terblanche going to prison, coming out of prison, and then being a reformed racist. That's literally all I remember. I don't know any of their politics, really. I was 9, right, when apartheid officially ended. And I was 7 when it kind of ended, So, yeah, I don't know much about that period. By design, they say what the ANC cannot. Fear, my friends, is a powerful motivator. Lamborghini, 100% spot on. Everything you just said there, 100% true. Same as the hijacked building mafia. They are there to destabilize and take buildings so that the ANC can do EWC without getting pushback. Jermaine, I think there's a lot of things happening in this country. And I think the ANC is working alongside criminal cartels and organizations in order to make those things work, in order to get what they ultimately think belongs to them. The one thing that I can see the ANC get into trouble for would be most governments that try to utilize criminal gangs in order to get their way end up being beholden to the criminal gangs. Eventually, the criminal gangs take control because criminals will always be more violent than government can ever match. Anami, we feel the same, just being and living among fellow citizens, growing together and appreciating life for the miracles it brings. True. Parliament is owned by elite deep state NATO UN. Your vote gives them power to rob you and rape the country. Politics is the problem. Pureblood, I'm not in disagreement with you. Same as the hijacked buildings. When we were all born, we didn't get a choice if we wanted politicians, to rule over us, thinking they are gods. Again, not wrong. Muslims have huge control of the ANC, just like in the UK. I do. Dude, I would love to. I won't be talking about this now. Yeah, I won't be talking about this now. But I do have some things that I will share in due time. It goes much deeper than you guys think. They need a boogeyman to blame. Have you seen the Bantu City Diaries? I have not, Tenter. I have not. Things can't change. The liberals do not want it. An educated black population would not keep them in power. Penny, I agree with you. But I have to trust, and I'll end with this because we're over an hour now. But I'll end with this one. My trust is in Jesus, right? I know that he is in charge and he is in control. And I know that there are things that we have to learn, ways in which we still have to change, lessons that we have not yet learned. But I also know that when the time is right, things will change on his time. When at at the perfect time, things will change. And when they do, there will be a new dawn for South Africa. I know that, right? And I believe that with all my heart. So my message to all of you would be that don't despair. Don't get angry. Be educated, be informed, put and apply pressure where and if you can, but don't allow people to draw you into anger. I know it's hard. I get angry too. Right? I get angry too. I get angry a lot. Um, because you see things and you can't help yourself. It's just this instant response, like, screw you bastards. But don't allow it to control you. Don't allow that to be the thing that guides your decisions. Because there's no point to that. There's nothing to be gained from that. Know that everything plays out by his sovereign will, and it all will work out for good for those of us who believe in him. We just have to be faithful. We have to pray and we have to be faithful. And we have to be vigilant. We have to be ready to defend those we love, because that might also be important at some point. Is already working over SA. Be patient and become like Yeshua. Let our King show us the way forward. Truth and amen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me, for spending time with me. I hope you had fun. It was a little bit of a slower afternoon. Like this Monday had a bunch of big stories, but I already covered it. So, I don't want to go over the same sort of military stories again, because that would have been boring. I'll be back tomorrow. As today, I will make sure that I schedule the stream for all of you so that you know. I might just have the stream be TBD, to be decided, because I don't know yet what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow night. But if you see a TBD stream, just know that I'll announce what the stream is about closer to the time, right? Just so that you know when we're going live. Caleb, how you doing, bro? This is Day Civil Chat. I really appreciate every one of you for coming out and hanging out. For those of you that donated money, for those of you that support this channel, that's always ready to help out, I truly appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I'm still going to be playing around with the exact timings of the stream, whether it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whether it's 7 o'clock in the evening. I just want to find a time that works for all of us, so that you guys don't have to, maybe you're busy working and now you're sort of split, your attention is split and you're not quite able to partake in the way that you want. So maybe 7 o'clock works for you best. Let me know in the comment section what time works best for you. As always, if you want to talk to me, you want to chat to me, you can DM me on X or you can send me a message on Discord. I might be a little slow to respond, or you can email me. Either one is fine. But I truly appreciate every single one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be good to each other, be kind to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.